Hey guys, I'm on the road this weekend, but I think it's worth a quick update. If you're brand new to the channel, normally it sounds a lot better. I'm in the studio, but this data is going to be the same. So we're going to talk about what I think is going to happen over the next couple of weeks and the cold that I think is lurking. I don't think winter's done. So all of you winter fans, yes, you're going to be a little heartbroken over the next week or so. It's going to get really warm. Some of you are loving the early spring. Some of you across the northern tier and the west are thinking, what spring? What are you talking about? Big snows across the Pacific Northwest as this cold air really gets entrenched. But look what happens. Our polar vortex is still going to split, and I think we're going to bring some cold air south. One shot comes down around the 9th and the 10th. We get a bit of a break, at least for the east. But look what happens behind this. More cold air comes in. And the reason we're starting to see that show up is because of what's happening in the upper levels. We'll get to that map right there in just a moment. That's your departures from averages. But really warm over the next week or so. Here's where the change starts. Once we get toward next weekend, you got this big ridge across Alaska. You've got a deep trough here and your polar vortex over here across Greenland. That starts to break down. Now you're going to see some ridging out of Europe, and then that's going to back into Greenland. That opens the door for cold, I think, to move south into the central and eastern U.S. again. And now your storm track is a little bit further to the west, at least further than it has been. And that might put storms in areas where we've not seen much snow so far this winter. And I think there's going to be a couple of waves. The first wave of warmth that we're going to see is going to be this week, Monday through Tuesday and Wednesday. These are temperature departures from average. Up here's the cold, really cold back across western Canada. Temperatures a good 10 to 20, maybe even 30 degrees below average, and that could drop into parts of Washington and Montana. On the flip side of that, way above average across the south. Another shot of cold air moving into the northeast too. It doesn't last. We will warm up again, at least slightly, near or above normal across the northeast. Not crazy blowtorch, but definitely warm from the mid-Atlantic into the deep south, across the south, into the southwest. Here comes another shot of cold, though, as we head toward the 8th and the 9th. That looks like it's headed toward the northeast. And then we'll squeeze another shot of warm air ahead of our next trough that will swing through the west. Eventually, this is the change maker, I think, as we head toward the 8th, 9th, 10th, and the 11th, pushing some colder air south into the lower 48. And I think that also brings a chance of some snow. Hey, if you're brand new to the channel, thanks for coming by. Normally, it sounds a lot better, but as I said, I'm on the road. I used to be a chief meteorologist years ago on television, and this kind of stuff fascinates me. So if you think you like this kind of stuff, you want to come back and subscribe, I hope you will. And thanks for all of you who have supported the channel. Let's get back to it. The snow is looking likely again across the northern plains into the Rockies over the next week or so. But look what the newest model runs are showing. Boom. You see that, right? Look at the snow across this area. From Kansas to Missouri to Illinois, it's showing up. I'm not saying it's going to happen yet, but the fact that it's showing up is really impressive, and it makes sense to me as we see that pattern change happen. Here's what we're looking like over the next couple of days anyway. Some snow moving through the Great Lakes into the northeast through Sunday into early Monday, and then we're watching more snow across the west. That will spread east into North Dakota. Eventually, another round of snow for Wisconsin, Michigan. And then that will move into the northeast too with some rain and snow here. Yep, a little bit too warm for snow on the southern side of this for places like even Massachusetts, southern New York into Pennsylvania, and then across the west. We're going to get really active as our atmospheric river, that fetch of moisture off of the Pacific, just gets pushed into the mountains. And we're talking about, I don't know if we want to go with historic or record-breaking, but it's going to be just an enormous amount of moisture over the next couple of weeks here. Snow totals, I mean, we're talking feet upon feet upon feet into the Sierra. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. I think this active storm path is something to watch, especially around the 8th and the 9th. This could put some snow into Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan. That could be a big storm, all right? So you got one here that could potentially impact the northeast. The track still to be determined. Let's just wait and see if we get a storm in that time frame. Behind that, I think another one's going to be on its heels by the 11th and 12th. This will be with your cold air starting to move south and your change. It's going to get warm out ahead of this too. On the north side of that, wherever we stay cold, this could be a heavy dump of snow. So let's watch this from Oklahoma to Kansas, northeast in this axis area. Could it go away tomorrow? Yeah, it certainly could. It's showing up now. I don't believe any of this yet. I'm just looking at the pattern, and the pattern says this could be an active one for storms once we get into this time frame. And I don't think winter's done. I think this is, again, we're in February. Sure, it's getting later and later, and the chances are growing slimmer and slimmer, especially the further south you are. But some of the biggest snows, as some of you may remember, have been in that February and March timeframe for some parts of the country. This is the GFS. It tells a little bit of a different story. It's got that storm, though, around the 8th and the 9th. It looks a little bit different, but you can see that snow across Wisconsin into Michigan and the Northeast. However, once you get toward the 10th and the 11th, the GFS tries to develop something on the back end of this. It's not quite as aggressive at the 12Z. If you went back to early this morning, it had something here. It wasn't quite as aggressive either, but it was there. You can kind of see it. So, again, not sold just yet on an exact track of any particular storm, but I do think there is a chance of it. Quick look at the short term across the Northeast and the East, dry across the South, also dry across the Mississippi River Valley here, and into the Ohio River Valley. Not looking bad. Warm temperatures, too. This is what we call warm air advection. It's moving to the Northeast. Lots of warm air moving all the way up here into southern New England, where we're talking about liquid precipitation instead of wintry precip. If you look at that over the next couple of days, this is what we're looking at. A couple of inches could fall here across the northern parts of Minnesota. Some of that could get heavy as we head into Monday. That's what that second system that moves through. So we're talking about at the end of the day, maybe by Tuesday, we could be looking at close to a foot here into the Arrowhead of Minnesota, into the UP of Michigan, into parts of Wisconsin, maybe even close to 6 inches up toward Green Bay, and into the Northeast. Some snow possible here. There's the snow totals through Monday, and then Tuesday, some more falling mild across the Ohio Valley, down into Tennessee, Kentucky, 60s and 70s here. Even Chicago getting close to 50. We start to warm up some in the Northeast. New York may get close to 50. 60s pushing up to Richmond, to D.C. almost, and then up to Columbus, Indianapolis, warm too. And then as we head toward, look at this, Tuesday and Wednesday, some colder temperatures for the Northeast. We're talking about below zero temperatures into Maine and into parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and then more cold air building back in as we head toward the end of the week across the Midwest into the Great Lakes. Temperatures on Saturday may not get out of the teens, and there's another blast of cold air heading into next weekend. Across the central U.S. and the southern states here, dry, at least through Monday and Tuesday. There's that snow moving across the high plains and into the Great Lakes region as we head toward Monday night and Tuesday. And then cold high pressure settles in here. Temperatures below normal, well above normal across the southern plains, with temperatures climbing into the 60s and 70s as we head into Sunday. Really warm here across Texas. Mid-70s, close to 80 heading into Sunday afternoon. Even up toward Oklahoma City, we may push 70 in Kansas, well into the 60s. I don't think it's going to last forever here either. Now, the further south you are, the warmer it's going to be, but by the time you get now, look at this, into Tuesday, even places like Kansas back into the 30s. So now you're setting up that dividing line. Where does your storm go? What do things look like as we get toward the end of the week? Again, a lot to be determined yet still. But we've got one storm moving through. That's going to bring some snow. We looked at some of that here, but plenty of cold behind it too, with single digits and below zero temperatures across the northern plains and across the west. Big snow falling here across the Sierra into the Cascades. Look at the moisture. It just continues to funnel in all the way through the week. If you look at some of these snow totals, this is just through Wednesday. I'm going to circle this area here near Tahoe. 56 inches being modeled out here on the European from this afternoon. If you push that out ahead in time through next Saturday, 84. Some of the numbers just absolutely wild here. And if you really go out in time, those just continue to go. You're talking triple-digit numbers here into the Sierra over the next week or so in inches. That's wild, right? Feet and feet and feet of snow across Northern California too, Southern Oregon, into the mountains, the coastal ranges. We're even going to get some snow down at sea level. It's not going to be a lot, but you got to get up into the mountains to get some big totals. And further inland, this is just impressive across Idaho. Now down into Boise, it's always tough to get snow here, but into the mountains, up to 3 feet of snow through Tuesday. Here into parts of Idaho, parts of northwest Wyoming, and then that snow spreads east too, into Montana, outside of the big mountains too, as our system continues to push east. That's all I got for now, guys. I'll see you next time.